After starting over in love, she believed she'd found her Prince Charming.
He would speak of marriage.
She thought he was the one.
But a horrifying discovery will destroy their happily ever after.
The ladies, no bruises.
She had been strangled and left in the bathtub of a seedy highway motel.
It's almost like a crime novel come to life, something you see in a movie.
Was this the work of a deranged highway killer?
These motels, they're just magnets for crime.
This is obviously a serial violent offender.
Or was this a crime born of obsession and rage?
He treated her as if he had ownership of her.
That wasn't his first time hitting the girl.
Things got out of control.
It's hard to think that someone you love would be that violent.
November 2nd, 2019. It's a crisp fall Saturday in Lakewood, Colorado, a city of 150,000 that sprawls between Denver and the Rocky Mountain foothills.
Everywhere you turn around, you see beautiful mountains. You see people hiking and doing rock climbing.
It's just a really outdoor-focused community.
But that night, as the city settles in after a long day on the slopes and trails, a maintenance man knocks on the door of a motel room on West Alameda Avenue.
It's an older motel among a long stretch of highway motels.
There were numerous people in the motel going to the front and saying, hey, we can't get any hot water.
And so the maintenance man had come to check it out and see what the problem was. And he saw that water was leaking from under the door of room number 3.
Maintenance, hello?
When he doesn't get a response, the maintenance man uses his master key to unlock the door.
Maintenance, hello? Is there a problem?
The maintenance man sees the water coming out of the bathroom.
When he pushes the door open, he makes a horrifying discovery.
Oh my God! Oh my God.
He sees a woman dead in the bathtub.
She was found in the bathtub on her back, and the water had been left running.
The maintenance man quickly dials 911.
911?
911, what's the emergency?
9 now, number 3. The ladies, no bruises, the lady died.
I'm sorry, what's happening?
Lady is the passed away.
A female possibly passed away?
Yeah.
A Lakewood police officer races to the scene, but there's no saving the woman in the bath.
It appeared she'd been dead for quite a while. It was difficult to determine initially how she passed away.
But the officer is able to make a preliminary identification.
As they were kind of inventorying the room, they noticed that there was a wallet with a driver's license inside of it.
It belongs to Rotasha Pryor Thomas.
According to her driver's license, Rotasha lived in a house in Lakewood on the other side of town. So how did she end up dead in a motel room?
32-year-old Rotasha Pryor Thomas had always been the quiet type.
She was an introvert. She somewhat kept to herself, and she loved art. She loved drawing. She was a fantastic artist.
She had a very contagious personality, from her laugh to the way she spoke and sang.
She loved to sing. She had a beautiful voice.
She used to always play Destiny's Child and TLC. I just remember listening to all types of music with my mom.
Rotasha loved music so much, she even let go of her introverted tendencies and took a shot at performing.
Actually, Rotasha wanted to become a singer.
She actually went to the Apollo. She and her best friend went and auditioned there, and I was surprised she did that because that's a very big thing to do for a shy person.
But those dreams took a backseat to motherhood when Rotasha gave birth to a beautiful baby girl in 2006.
By her 20s, Rotasha was a single mom working in a restaurant to provide for her daughter, Jadea.
She didn't mind the hard work because being a mother was the most important thing in her life, and Jadea was her shining light.
We were really close. When it comes to like girly stuff, I always did that with my mom, like going to get our nails done, or sometimes we would just hang out and eat or watch movies.
While the relationship with Jadea's father hadn't worked out, Rotasha found comfort in the arms of an old classmate named Felix King.
Felix was funny and kind, and he was great with Rotasha's daughter.
They had a great relationship. She thought that was the one.
Over time, however, Rotasha and Felix's romance hit a snag.
He couldn't hold down a job.
Their financial stability becomes a strain.
Rotasha tried to help Felix get a job, but he never seemed motivated to work.
Like, we're hiring right now. I can get you an interview with the manager.
Those long hours, babe, I can spend at home with you. You don't want me gone all the time, do you?
Felix, you can't just sit around all day doing nothing. I need you to contribute, Felix.
It seemed to Rotasha that Felix didn't mind being unemployed, as long as she was paying his way, and that wasn't going to work for someone as independent as Rotasha.
Their relationship started to have some problems.
Felix tried to convince her that they could make things work, that he had real feelings for her, but Rotasha ended the relationship.
As a mother, she realized that she couldn't have that instability in her life.
Having children to look after, that really puts her in a very different place about what her future should look like.
After the breakup, Rotasha refocused her attention on her daughter.
She was very hesitant to get back into the dating scene.
And when she first met Jarvis Gates, she didn't take his pursuit seriously.
Can I get you anything else?
How about your phone number?
Jarvis, how long have you been coming in here and flirting? You know I'm not dating right now.
Come on. I would love to take you out on the town. I promise I'll be the perfect gentleman. I won't even kiss you goodnight.
Fine, but only as friends. I mean it. Enjoy your sandwich.
He was more like a rebound.
But Jarvis was determined to sweep Rotasha off her feet.
He had a steady job at a distribution warehouse and didn't hesitate to spend money on her.
He treated her like a queen.
Between the gifts and attention, Rotasha finally felt that she was getting the kind of love she deserved.
Rotasha thought she had found the man of her dreams, and the two started talking about taking the next steps.
She finally had the stability that she's always wanted.
But now Rotasha has been found dead in a motel bathtub, and police are trying to piece together what happened to her.
Off the interstate there, the old motels along Alameda Avenue aren't really on most tourist itineraries.
They have just become these sort of toxic playgrounds for like drug dealers.
Initially, police thought maybe there had been an accident or some sort of overdose.
But upon closer inspection, police realized Rotasha's death was no accident.
There were bruises around the victim's neck.
There was almost nothing left in the room except her identification and some food. Nothing Rotasha could have used to cause the bruising on her neck herself, which leads to one conclusion.
She's been strangled to death.
When you see what happened to her, it's almost like a crime novel come to life. It's almost like something you see in a movie.
In the fall of 2019, hard-working single mother Rotasha Pryor Thomas had found love with a new man, Jarvis Gates.
She was very hesitant to get back into the dating scene, but Jarvis treated her right.
When Jarvis comes into her life and he's showering her with TLC, that affection, that care, she's thinking, I guess I found my future king.
He would speak of marriage.
But Jarvis's dreams of marrying Rotasha would come to a nightmarish end on November 2nd, 2019.
Dispatch received a call that there was a woman found in a motel room bathtub, and she was unresponsive.
What's interesting about the motel is it sits about a mile and a half south of a really famous road called Colfax Avenue. And Colfax was once described as the longest and wickedest road in America. And the reason is because there are so many motels. They account for an inordinate number of police calls. Unfortunately, they're just magnets for crime.
Immediately, police had to wonder if this was the work of some highway killer that had lured Rotasha to this motel, just based on the savage nature of her death.
Rotasha's kind of banged up. She's bruised around the neck.
It's just a terrifying way to be killed.
To detectives, it's evident that Rotasha had struggled with her killer.
They noticed that she's been injured in other places.
She had scrapes on her knees and on her ankle.
She's got bruising on her head, her legs.
All of these are indications of a violent death.
The police start looking around and they notice there's almost nothing in that hotel room. There's just Rotasha's driver's license and wallet and a bucket of chicken.
There was practically nothing in the room. It looked like no one had really been staying there very long.
But it's also what's missing from the room that piques detectives' interest.
All of the bed sheets from one of the beds had been removed.
If Rotasha had been murdered in the bed, the killer likely tried to dispose of the sheets in an attempt to get rid of any blood and DNA evidence.
Examining the bed a little bit closer, they noticed some blood spatter on the headboard.
This in turn supported detectives' theory that Rotasha was likely moved from the bed to the bathtub in order to wash away any DNA evidence on her body.
Detectives knew that a random killer wasn't likely to clean up after themselves, so they started to think that Rotasha was targeted for some reason, and the person who did this likely knew her.
After Rotasha's body is removed for autopsy, detectives make their way outside to search the grounds.
The police are trying to find the bed sheets. They're clearly missing from the room.
In a dumpster behind the motel, they found bedding that appeared to have blood stains.
Detectives continue searching the dumpster and locate more evidence.
And they also find a receipt for the chicken.
The police noticed the receipt said 6:30 p.m. on Halloween.
In hopes of creating a more thorough timeline, detectives canvass the other motel guests.
The police start working their way around the hotel, talking to people, asking them if they've seen anything.
Unfortunately, few of the guests were all that willing to talk. They couldn't get anyone to say they'd seen anything suspicious in the past 48 hours.
These motor lodges, these motels in an area that's no longer traveled became like no-tell motels where people would rent more by the hour than by the day.
When detectives speak to the motel manager, he provides them with a name on the motel register.
The hotel room was rented to a man by the name of William Hunt.
The manager also told police that given the nature of the motel, it was pretty common for people to register under false names.
But the manager also provides a crucial piece of evidence.
Then the motel manager tells police that they actually have a surveillance camera that is pointed at room number 3.
Appreciate it.
When detectives review the video back at the station, they discover Rotasha first entering the room on Halloween night.
Looking at this footage, they see Rotasha and a medium-built black man both go into that room around 8:15.
They weren't carrying any luggage, but the man was carrying the takeout container full of chicken.
While detectives can confirm the woman entering the room is Rotasha, her companion's identity isn't as clear.
Because of the angle of the camera, they can't really get a good look at the guy's face. All they can see is that he has a really distinctive black jacket.
Presumably, this was the mysterious William Hunt who rented the room.
Hoping to get a better look at the man when he leaves, detectives search through the tape.
The police fast forward about 2 hours.
There was an exceptionally haunting moment in this footage where you see the door swing wide open and a figure emerges, but it's not the unidentified man.
The security camera captured Rotasha trying to get out of the room. That same male figure grabbed Rotasha by the collar and violently dragged her back into the room.
She looks like she's fighting for her life.
One really cannot describe what she could have been feeling in that moment. So much fear and so much panic.
They're seeing the moments just before Rotasha was murdered.
Detectives investigating the murder of Rotasha Pryor Thomas in a Lakewood, Colorado motel room have uncovered surveillance video that appears to capture the moments leading up to the crime.
Hours after entering into the hotel room with a man named William Hunt, she can be seen frantically trying to escape.
And someone comes and drags her back into the room. Then a few hours later, you see on the surveillance tape someone making a trip to the dumpster.
Based on the jacket he's wearing, it appeared to be the same man.
Unfortunately, the video is too grainy to make a clear identification. And detectives hit another roadblock when they learn the registered name, William Hunt, is likely an alias.
The manager admitted to police that a lot of their guests register under fake names.
So now it's about deciphering, okay, is this a real person?
When detectives run the name through DMV records, they come up empty.
They can't find anybody matching that description with that name.
Aliases are very common for lots of different reasons. We see them all over the place, and it kind of creates a little frustration to figure out who exactly is who, and is this a family member of the suspect? Did someone rent the room for him?
Hoping to learn more about Rotasha, detectives reach out to her family the next morning and break the news of her death.
The detectives have to notify the family. One of the hardest things that a law enforcement officer has to do.
They come inside and the first thing they ask is, how are you related to Rotasha and when's the last time you seen her?
It is the most unnerving. It's really scary this to know that they're there asking you, do you know a Rotasha? And you have to respond, yes, that's my daughter.
She's like, don't tell me nothing bad. Don't tell me nothing bad.
I knew something was wrong because she was not answering her phone, and I just knew the news wasn't good.
Ma'am, we're so sorry.
No, God, no, my baby, no, Jesus.
And that's when I started crying.
My daughter was deceased.
The family is shocked to learn about Rotasha's death. They're brokenhearted about that.
The family tells detectives that they haven't been able to reach Rotasha for 2 days.
On Halloween, she had took me trick-or-treating, and she didn't let me stay out for long because she was trying to get to her boyfriend's house. We had went home. I just remember she told me she loved me and gave me a hug and told me she'll see me in the morning and she'll bring me some more candy when I woke up.
But Rotasha never came home.
I remember waking up, and it was really weird because my mom wasn't home, or like there was no sign of her being home or nothing. So we started calling her job. They were like, she didn't come in today. Me and my grandma started getting work because it was never like my mom to not call or check in.
Rotasha's mother says she had also called her daughter's boyfriend, Jarvis Gates.
He said he hadn't seen her either.
Okay. Did your daughter know anyone by the name of William Hunt?
No, not that I know of, no.
They have no idea who this William Hunt is.
And they have no idea how she ended up at the motel.
They're surprised that she's at that hotel. They don't understand why she would be there.
If you're from here, you know what the deal is with those motels. You know that no good ever comes from those places.
When detectives asked the family if Rotasha had ever made any enemies, they explained that everyone loved her. But they do mention that Rotasha had recently reconnected with her ex-boyfriend, Felix King.
Rotasha's family is saying this person she was with for several years, the relationship ended badly.
They thought she'd actually been hearing from her ex-boyfriend, Felix, and that he was wanting to get back together with her.
Apparently, Felix still had those feelings there and didn't want to let her go.
Maybe Felix had arranged to meet up with Rotasha at the motel and things hadn't worked out the way he had hoped.
Detectives suspect that might be the case when they bring Felix in for an interview.
The first thing that the detectives note is that Felix matches the description of the guy on camera. He has the same height and build.
And what Felix tells detectives raises even more suspicion.
Where were you Halloween night?
I was at home.
Can anyone verify that?
No. I was home alone, just taking it easy.
He says that he was at home watching horror movies.
Without any witnesses, there was basically no way to confirm or deny his location at the time of Rotasha's murder.
But Felix insists he had nothing to do with Rotasha's death.
Felix tells detectives that not only would he never hurt her, but he was trying to get back together with her.
He doesn't deny the fact that he still had feelings for Rotasha, and in fact said that she had seemed amenable to possibly rekindling their relationship and that they had gone and had coffee together to talk about things.
Maybe she and Felix were at a place of being able to reconcile and rekindle that romance.
He wanted to heal their relationship and make amends.
According to Felix, though, it was Rotasha who needed healing.
Felix told detectives that the last time he had run into Rotasha at the restaurant, it looked like she had been roughed up pretty bad.
Are you okay?
Felix said that he noticed Rotasha had bruises and he was concerned about it.
In Lakewood, Colorado, police are investigating the shocking murder of 32-year-old Rotasha Pryor Thomas. When they learn Rotasha may have been the victim of domestic abuse only days earlier.
Rotasha's ex-boyfriend Felix told detectives that the last time he saw her, he noticed she had a black eye.
What happened?
Oh, this is nothing. I just hit myself on the car, that's all.
Are you sure?
Felix tells police that when he asked her about it, she was kind of hesitant to tell him what had happened.
That is very difficult to talk about, even with your most trusted confidant.
Felix claims that Rotasha had eventually told him the truth.
Felix told detectives that Rotasha admitted that it was her boyfriend Jarvis who had gotten physical with her, and that's why she had bruising.
According to Felix, Jarvis had supposedly choked Rotasha.
Apparently, he's been getting increasingly violent with her over the course of her relationship.
And she said that this guy had choked her.
That's what she said.
Felix's claims are telling, especially when detectives get the results of Rotasha's autopsy.
The medical examiner noticed bruising on her neck. He noticed petechiae around her eyes, blood in her stomach.
She lost her life due to asphyxiation.
But is Felix telling the whole story?
If Felix was actually her killer, he'd know the cause of death too. So detectives were wary that he may be trying to throw them off track.
The woman that he loves is telling him to his face, I was abused. And of course, that's gonna naturally incite feelings of anger.
When Rotasha told Felix what had happened, he wanted to go confront Jarvis himself.
His natural response is guilt and shame, internalizing things like, oh, maybe this is my fault.
He's shocked to hear that she's dead.
He seems very, very upset.
To detectives, Felix's reactions seem genuine.
Essentially, he lost the woman that he loved.
After talking to Felix, detectives follow up with Rotasha's family.
Detectives asked about Felix's claims about Jarvis being abusive, but the family said they really hadn't gotten to know Jarvis.
Rotasha was a private, personal person when it came to relationships. She didn't really share too much.
Rotasha's family tells detectives that they never witnessed any abuse firsthand.
I don't think it would have been a very positive reaction had I seen him putting his hands on my daughter.
But her family says that Rotasha's relationship with Jarvis had other problems.
I've witnessed verbal abuse.
He just was rude and standoffish and kind of an uneasy energy around him.
Jarvis was insensitive, always had an attitude, always constantly upset, and he treated her as if he had ownership of her.
Intimate partner violence, it's complex. Oftentimes, people get very isolated in these types of relationships. Some of that is on the part of the perpetrator, and I think some of that is on the part of the victim as well.
A lot of individuals in these type of relationships kind of get themselves caught because you start in this honeymoon stage where the perpetrator will essentially facilitate or create this illusion of safety and stability.
I was thinking, like, why do you let him run over you like this? Like, you're a grown woman. You should be able to stick up for yourself and say what you want to say, when you want to say it, how you want to say it. It would make me mad because him as a man should know better. There's no way you should be talking disrespectful.
I just didn't understand what she saw in him.
Police recognize it as a classic sign of trouble ahead.
By the time the physical abuse becomes apparent, there have already been red flags. There have already been signs of abuse, such as emotional manipulation and gaslighting, belittling, criticizing, dismissing one's feelings. So those are more often than not present before we start seeing anything that's fully apparent.
We also know it's a very underreported crime. We really don't have good numbers. The numbers we do have are staggering, but we don't know for sure that those numbers are accurate because we know that victims initially don't report these things. And we know based on CDC statistics, it takes 7 times on average for someone to leave a relationship that's abusive before they're successful. And that's a long period of time. And if you have somebody who's fairly advanced in the types of violence that they're perpetrating, and you're coming into that as a new relationship, that you don't have a lot of time for that adjustment to take place and for you to get out.
Even more troubling for detectives, looking into Jarvis's past reveals a history of domestic assault.
He has several felonies on his record, including several instances of domestic violence in other relationships.
One of those charges is really interesting to the police because it was just a couple years before that he had assaulted a different ex-girlfriend at a motel.
And when detectives pull the report from the prior incident, the details may solve one more mystery: why Rotasha went to the motel.
In her statement to police, that ex-girlfriend said that Jarvis had been fighting with her for a couple of weeks and then asked her to meet him at that motel so that they could make up.
She told police that she showed up at the motel thinking maybe we can talk things out, fix this relationship.
But what she thought would be a romantic evening almost turned out to be her last.
As soon as she got there, it was clear that they were not going to work things out. Jarvis threw her on the bed and started hitting her. The ex-girlfriend says he even started choking her.
It was eerily similar to Rotasha's murder, if not the exact same circumstances.
But unlike Rotasha, Jarvis's ex-girlfriend had been lucky.
She was able to get away, run to the lobby, and call police.
She ran out, and that's how she got away, or else she would be dead.
With this new information, detectives placed Jarvis at the top of their suspect list in Rotasha's murder.
After reviewing all of the information in this file, it seems that this is not something that is new to him.
This is a serial violent offender. It's somebody who has offended repeatedly and has developed a pattern of offense.
Just rational thinking tells you it happened before. So yeah, it was definitely a cycle.
Police immediately track Jarvis down at his home in Lakewood and bring him in for questioning. When detectives begin pressing him about his relationship with Rotasha, he doesn't deny what they've uncovered.
When they sit down to interview him, he says, yes, I've had a troubled past, but I had nothing to do with Rotasha's death.
Look, I know I messed up in the past, but that's all behind me now.
Jarvis said that with Rotasha, he'd really been trying to make a fresh start and do things right this time.
I love Tasha. I'd never do anything to hurt her.
When's the last time you talked to her?
During the day on Halloween.
Jarvis tells police that he and Rotasha were supposed to go to a Halloween party together that night, but that she never showed up.
He said that he was waiting for her at his home, that they were going to meet around 8 p.m.
Jarvis says when Rotasha didn't show up, he tried calling her.
And she never showed?
No.
Jarvis tells detectives that after waiting around for an hour or so, he'd gone to the party alone.
Jarvis said he had gotten there at like 9 o'clock.
He says he didn't see her that night at all.
Did you try to call her the next day?
Nah, I thought maybe she was mad at me.
Despite his claims, detectives aren't buying Jarvis's story.
Given what they heard from Rotasha's family about how overbearing and controlling he was, they found it hard to believe that Jarvis would just sit and wait for her to call him.
But while detectives suspect Jarvis is lying, they'll need more evidence to charge him with murder. While police hold Jarvis in custody, detectives begin digging into his alibi.
They start talking to people who were at the Halloween party. People there said that Jarvis did come to the Halloween party, but he didn't get there until after midnight.
That's a 3-hour time difference.
The fact that he did not attend said party until after midnight does give him plenty of time to be able to commit the crime and still make it to that party.
Now the question is, can detectives prove where Jarvis had been?
They remember that they found that receipt in the motel garbage.
The chicken was purchased at 6:30 p.m. at a local grocery store. The police went to that grocery store to find out if Rotasha had purchased it or if someone else had purchased that chicken.
The chicken was actually bought with a gift card, and so there are no records to show police who it was.
But there is surveillance video.
They were able to see the transaction take place.
And unlike the video from the motel, there was no mistaking the man leaving the grocery store.
It was Jarvis who purchased that chicken.
Detectives in Lakewood, Colorado have discovered security video that connects Jarvis Gates to the motel room where his girlfriend Rotasha Pryor Thomas was murdered.
Just a few hours before the murder, a grocery store security camera recorded him purchasing the takeout fried chicken that detectives found in the room.
Being able to find that same bucket of chicken in the room does essentially debunk his statement of not having contact with her that day.
Hoping to prove he was the man seen entering the motel room with Rotasha, detectives subpoena Jarvis's cell phone records.
Now they're able to see Jarvis's cell phone's movements during the night in question.
Cell phone towers will ping and record a phone's location if it's in use. And fortunately for detectives, Jarvis kept his phone on and with him all night long on Halloween.
They're able to see that that cell phone went to the convenience store and to the motel as well.
The phone data also confirms what the people at the Halloween party previously told detectives, that Jarvis didn't arrive at 9 as he'd claimed.
Which shows he ended up going to that party well after midnight.
Jarvis's phone isn't the only thing that puts him at the crime scene either.
The most powerful evidence comes when the police get the results back from the forensic testing.
Jarvis's DNA and his fingerprints were found all over the hotel room in which Rotasha was killed. They know, based on the surveillance camera footage, that nobody else entered that hotel room after Jarvis left.
All of the evidence that the detectives have, the surveillance, the chicken bucket that was found, the sheets that were found, all of it does point to Jarvis being Rotasha's killer.
It's enough to charge Jarvis, but not before they collect one more valuable piece of evidence.
The officers go to the warehouse where Jarvis works and searched some of Jarvis's property that was at work. They located a black jacket that matched perfectly the jacket that the male was wearing when he entered Rotasha's hotel room.
After collecting the jacket, the detectives sit Jarvis down for another interview.
You need to start being straight with us, Jarvis.
We know you were at the motel with Tasha.
And they confront him with some of the evidence that they found. Jarvis quickly starts to change his story.
Jarvis admits to police that he wasn't telling the truth when he was brought in the first time and says that's because he was scared that they were going to try to pin the murder on him, but now he's ready to tell them what really happened.
Jarvis also admits that he rented the motel room.
But it was registered to a man named William Hunt.
I used a fake ID.
Jarvis said that he rented the room to meet Rotasha, but Rotasha had been on board with the plan.
Jarvis tells police that his relationship with Rotasha had been in some trouble. He thought that having a night away together might help them.
A little one-on-one time.
Yeah, I thought maybe we could work things out.
But Jarvis says they never got a chance to talk things over.
Jarvis told police that this romantic evening he had planned didn't go the way he thought it would.
What happened?
She started getting at me.
He said Rotasha was the one that was being hostile and aggressive.
According to Jarvis, Rotasha accused him of cheating on her.
Baby, I missed you.
I know you've been messing around.
Jarvis said he denied the accusation, but that Rotasha didn't believe him.
You know what, Jarvis? I am so sick and tired of you lying.
He said that Rotasha got angry at him.
There was an argument that broke out, and things got out of control, things got really violent.
Jarvis says that Rotasha was so angry, he actually had to physically defend himself.
We saw you on the video, Jarvis.
She tried to run and you stopped her.
I know what it looks like, but I swear I tried to help her.
Jarvis tells police that he did drag her back in the room, but then decided to leave and just let her cool off.
He said because she was so angry and she was starting to get physical, he knew that he needed to leave.
According to his account, he did not kill her.
Then how did she die, Jarvis?
Man, I don't know.
Well, she didn't choke herself.
Somebody must have gone in there after I left.
In Lakewood, Colorado, Jarvis Gates has admitted that he was in the motel room the night his girlfriend, Rotasha Pryor Thomas, died. But he tells police that doesn't make him a murderer.
According to his account, Rotasha was violent against him, and so he was acting in self-defense.
Even then, he denied killing Rotasha.
He said after he left, he didn't go back, and he didn't know that she'd been killed until the next morning.
Despite his repeated claims of innocence, detectives don't believe a word of Jarvis's story.
If Jarvis never intended to do any harm to Rotasha, why did he use the name William Hunt when he rented the room instead of his real name?
They know, based on the surveillance camera footage, that nobody else entered that hotel room after Jarvis left. So the police aren't buying his story at all.
Jarvis had a history of abusing other women. He had been to court before and charged before with abuse.
In fact, Rotasha's murder was eerily similar to an earlier assault on an ex-girlfriend.
The assault against his ex-girlfriend at a hotel shows same MO. It's just that this ended in Rotasha losing her life.
At the end of the interview, detectives booked Jarvis for murder.
Jarvis was charged with first-degree murder and also second-degree kidnapping. And that stems from dragging Rotasha back into the room when she was trying to get away.
In April 2021, Jarvis goes on trial for murder in a Jefferson County courtroom. It's an ordeal for Rotasha's family.
Going into trial was kind of scary.
It was very hard seeing Jarvis in that courtroom.
I didn't want to do it at first because I was like, I'd rather not talk about it. But then I had to come to terms, like, nobody's gonna hear my mom's story if there's nobody there to share it.
But it's also an ordeal the family feels a duty to endure.
Quite a few family members were in court.
Because I had to let him know, you don't have more power than me or my family. You're not gonna shut us up. No matter how hard you try, you're not shutting us up.
It was very hard for me to sit there. I had thoughts of when he was handcuffed, standing in that courtroom when there was no guards there, maybe grabbing him and choking him and let him see how it feels. But I had to just control myself. With the help of the Lord, I did.
The prosecutor opens by arguing that Rotasha died because Jarvis refused to let her walk away.
Rotasha and Jarvis's relationship was becoming increasingly rocky over the weeks prior to the murder.
The prosecution said that Rotasha had been thinking about leaving Jarvis and getting back with her ex.
But Jarvis wasn't going to allow that to happen.
On the night of the murder, the prosecutors say that Jarvis lured Rotasha to the motel room.
She was lured to that hotel under the pretenses of trying to work out the relationship issues that they were having.
Obviously, she didn't know what was going to happen that night.
Prosecutors believe that once they were inside the room, Jarvis delivered some sort of ultimatum.
He possibly felt that fear of losing what he perceived as his mind to control. So essentially looking at Rotasha and perhaps even her children as if they're a piece of property. And it seems as though that was it for her. And she was like, I'm done.
Don't walk away from me.
Let go of me! Let go of me!
She can be seen frantically trying to escape, but she's tackled by Jarvis and dragged back into the hotel room.
It's hard to think that someone you're dating, someone you love, would be that violent.
Based on the forensic evidence, prosecutors believe Jarvis pushed Rotasha onto the bed and began savagely beating her,
splattering her blood on the headboard and on the sheets.
Then, he strangled her to death.
he murdered my daughter.
Once Rotasha was dead, Jarvis removed her clothes and tried to cover up the crime.
He then drug her body to the bathtub to try to wash away the evidence and then discarded the bloody sheets.
He had been seen on camera taking items from the room to a dumpster.
When it's the defense's turn, they don't deny that Jarvis killed Rotasha.
All of the evidence, the surveillance, the chicken bucket that was found, the sheets that were found, all of it does point to Jarvis being in the room.
Instead, the defense claims that Jarvis never intended to kill Rotasha.
The defense says that there's actually no evidence that Jarvis premeditated this murder.
The defense said that it was just this crime of passion. Things got out of hand.
The defense even suggests that Rotasha's death was accidental.
The defense, for those reasons, argue that the charges should be reduced to manslaughter.
The jury, however, sides with the prosecution.
The jury found him guilty of first-degree murder.
Jarvis is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
The outcome is a relief to Rotasha's family.
I just cried because it was a very euphoric, happy feeling knowing that he's gone forever. He can't hurt nobody anymore.
I was very happy to know that Jarvis would spend the remainder of his useless life behind bars until he dies. I'm very pleased with that. He has a lot of time to think about his actions now.
Rotasha's family also has a lifetime to think about what he took from them.
It's such a loss that we as a community lost Rotasha, but then there's another level of loss and pain because her kids are left behind without her too.
There are so many cases like this these days that what happens is when they happen, it makes the news and it makes a little splash and then it sort of goes away. And it's just the family left there picking up the pieces.
It's the kind of loss felt in too many communities across America.
Domestic violence, it's real, and it's not just Rotasha. Unfortunately, this happens to a lot of women.
What happens in a lot of these cases is that women feel like they can't tell anyone what's really going on, and they often don't realize how common the problem of domestic violence is.
But her family hopes that others can learn from Rotasha's example.
It just really taught me, like, be careful who you give your heart to and be aware.
Predatory guys like that profile women and they pick and choose who's insecure.
They get their emotions invested, then they find out that this person that made you believe that you were protected turned out to be the person that you need the protection from.
Don't ignore red flags because, you know, love covers a multitude of sins, and as soon as you think you're in love with somebody, it's like, oh, well, he does that, but it's okay.
We find reasons to say, okay, I'm gonna stay because that's my children's father, or how am I supposed to support this by myself? We find all of these reasons, but by the time we get to a point of recognizing our own self-worth and our own value, it's too late.
Don't make allowances for bad behavior.
No, like, there are ways to get help, that they're not alone. There's people who are going through what they're going through, and I want them to know there are people who know the struggle.
Most of all, they encourage others not to be afraid to take action.
I wish she would have listened to that inner voice saying, get out of this. Get out of this relationship. Get out of this room. And unfortunately, when she did hear it, Jarvis was there to pull her back in. If she would have done it sooner, it might have had a different ending.
Just get out. Don't confront the person because it can be deadly.
And the consequences last forever.
I don't know if the pain ever goes. It gets easier and easier. Her spirit is still with me.
It makes me sad that my mom can't be to things like homecoming and my sweet 16 and prom and stuff like that. So it's not that I ever forget about it. I love her and I miss her, and I feel her presence everywhere.